It's showtime. Hello and welcome to SEO Meetup Melbourne. With us, we have Kristina Azarenko, we have Gaston Riera, and of course, my awesome co-host, Saijo George. Welcome, guys. Welcome.
Nick.
Oh, yes, and me. Yeah, welcome, guys. It's lovely to have you on here.
Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, Nick, take it away. Let's kind of get this thing going. I'm really excited for today. We've got some really good content.
Yeah. So first up, we're going to have Kristina go through e-commerce SEO, and then we're going to have Gaston go through like enterprise level data analysis, which is really, really awesome as well. So yeah, I'll just kind of like introduce everyone to Kristina as my document is loading. Kristina is, what's the time there at the moment?
So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kristina. I'm an e-commerce and technicalization consultant based in Toronto. So it's now it's like 4 a.m. for me.
Oh my gosh!
Don't judge me.
The real MVP right now.
No, well, I'm okay. But I'm very excited to join you today and to talk about e-commerce.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks
so much for doing this and waking up at this ungodly hour to kind of, talk about e-commerce SEO of all things.
Yeah. And what she didn't mention is that she's the founder of Marketing Syrup, a digital marketing consultancy based in Toronto, Canada. So yeah, hence the massive time difference.
Yeah, definitely.
And you also run a newsletter for e-commerce SEO, right?
Yeah.
How do people find that?
So at the end of my talk, I'm going to talk about a framework for e-commerce SEO websites that can help create high-quality category pages that capture long-tail keywords. And at the end, you also see an option to get the acceptance criteria to subscribe and get to accept all the acceptance criterion, because the framework is very technical and you need to communicate it properly. And I created all the acceptance criteria, and you can download it, and you'll be automatically added to the e-commerce. It's called SEO Shop Up. It's an e-commerce newsletter, free e-commerce newsletter with tips and tricks. It's amazing. Just do this, and you'll be added automatically.
Excellent. Amazing. And with us as well, we have Gaston Riera. Gaston, in his own words, he loves to solve SEO problems. The larger the website, the better, and working on technical and data-driven strategies. And also, Gaston, this is not your primary language.
No, it's not. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm from Argentina. My mother tongue is Spanish. So I could say, hola a todos, bienvenidos. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here.
So, yes, and Gaston will be familiar to a lot of you all because, he's kind of regular at the SEO meetups. So you would have seen him in the pre-COVID days. And I'm pretty sure we'll see him in the post-COVID days as well when we have the regular meetups.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And just a big shout out to all the other organizers who couldn't kind of be on the screen. So Peter Mead, Chris, Pam, all of those people.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great people on the panel. And also just a shout out to Peter Mead. It is his birthday tomorrow. What we like to do before we get into it, we'll have Kristina kicking off at 6:30. But we like to share some news and some things that have happened in the month that's been since May. So of course, like a lot of you have seen the Google algorithm update that's come through, the broad core update on May the 4th. Now, a lot of you have sort of had a lot of questions around that, which is really awesome. But we're really only starting to see now, what the impacts of that is. And a lot of what I'm seeing from just looking at my own data is that, of course, like I would go as far as to say that this has been a lot more impactful, say, from the Medic update in 2018. So largely what this update is centered around is with Google EAT. So expertise, authority, and trust, which Google's released some really, really great webmaster blogs about to give you a little bit more information. And there's tons of really, really great articles about there. But like some of the things that I've really seen is that actually like, and tweet at us or like write in the comments what you're seeing with your sites. But I've seen like massive benefits from that, which is always really, really nice, particularly as now is like a very difficult time. So yeah, that's definitely something that we've really been able to hit. So with expertise, many of those articles that have improved in rankings with this update contained like some elements of firsthand expertise, the authority, while authority is still very, very important and things like that. I've seen some instances of where like some of my larger sites have seen like smaller sites like start to like climb up in the SERP. So we've had a little bit of a look into that a little bit more just to like really assess the quality of that. But that's kind of like a really interesting insight there for anyone who does have a site that isn't necessarily like the name brand kinds of sites. It's a good opportunity for you guys to like think like, oh, okay, like if I actually do really write really good content and I am say like a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer, the like, I might actually have a chance to be able to outrank the big guys. And of course, like with trustworthiness, like those kinds of signals are really, really awesome to be able to like really assess what happens with those kinds of major core updates. If anyone is hearing some background noises, I do have a greyhound in the background that's sort of getting used to life here. So apologies for that. So like, yeah, there's a lot of things that have really, really come to light from that. And maybe I'll just like put it to the panel a little bit. If anyone's seen some, seen that in the sites that they manage or those they oversee.
For me, like, the one thing that I was expecting with this big update was it's not really going to move the needle a lot, but I was obviously very wrong about that. Like, I've seen some sites like this update was huge. And initially I thought it wouldn't be, but generally when they kind of announce an update, I'm like, this is not going to do much. It's going to be the small thing that kind of, has a small tick. But like, I'm guessing like, it's towards like after the first week that the update was rolling out, like there was a big shift, a lot of things were changing. And I'm not really sure if it's partly related to the change in the way people search as well, because of this whole COVID thing. So, but definitely like, big swings. And to tell you the truth, no real pattern that kind of sticked out as well. Like, some sites that kind of lost, if you kind of start analyzing as well, nothing that really stood out to kind of say, yep, there's one thing that's probably what's moving the needle. So I'm kind of all ears to kind of hear what other people have to say, because so far I'm kind of stumped as to what, like, is causing this massive change. No real, like, standout, like, things that kind of, at least for me, like, nothing that stood out.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, I manage a few really high authority sites with content from specialists, from really authority guys, some women from their field, and they've seen a really huge uptake or downtake. Either they crashed it to the ground or they crashed it double or triple their clicks. But when it comes to marketplaces and the other type of websites that I usually manage, it's kind of strange because in some cases everything stays the same. You may see a 20% decrease or a 10% decrease. It's like the usual with this update.
Any specific pattern that kind of stood out?
Well, there always are patterns, but I'm not comfortable thinking about patterns when it comes to a massive Google algorithm update, because it's kind of silly as to think in patterns, because Google probably they may have redesigned a big piece of their algorithm. So if you find a pattern, you can't do anything about it because it's already the damage or the uptake is already done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess if you've seen some negative things happen from that, like that's a good indicator that something is wrong. What I've seen, and I have the pleasure of working with a lot of different types of sites, sites that are sort of fairly newish, like sites that are like really not taking on board like some of the recommendations. I'm not calling out anyone in particular, but hey, we all know, any SEO knows.
No, they always implement. They always never happen.
Yeah, but I think for me anyway, like I always like try and think about like where this is coming from, and I think a lot of the time like when I think about EAT, a lot of it really boils down to like the relevancy and I guess like the quality of the content and how that would appear to users and things like that. So I have one client, and I think I talked about that when the algorithm update, rolled out, and we had the last SEO meetup. But they've really seen, further drops from that. And quite honestly, this is a type of technology that they're doing. I hope you're not hearing those barks, but if you are, Poppy has made her mark on this meetup. But the content of that is just it's just not working for them because they really haven't considered to add any of their credentials. They haven't really considered like to add any more information that really details the type of medical procedure that they're kind of championing. And like I know from asking I'm pretty lucky at knowing the head of the chief of a division of medicine, not to sort of say who he is, to say that like we know who this essentially this doctor is, that he is really quite respected in his field, but it just doesn't show up online, and it's like it's kind of a bit of a shame because there's so much stuff that he's doing that is really groundbreaking technology, but he just isn't doing a good job of being able to show that online. So I kind of use this as like kind of my canary in the mine shaft, if you will, to these kinds of algorithm updates, because I'm always thinking, well, I've got other medical sites, I've got other sites who are lawyers and things like that, who are only really benefiting from this because they're really working hard to try and really push that content, really show who they are, and link that all together with structured data as well, which we're helping them build out the architecture of that. So effectively, that's really what we're hoping to achieve.
So do you guys have anything to add to that? I've got a question for Nick, which we'll come to. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
So in terms of structured data, are you kind of talking about structured data for the person involved in kind of creating the content, or?
Sorry, we're looking for a lead for the dog. Yeah. I'm really sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Yeah. So my question was in regards to the structured data. Was it more towards like, defining who the person is who is kind of writing this content, or is it generally towards like structured data for the page itself?
It's a little, well, the structured data, of course, like, that gives Google a lot more extra information as to, what's actually appearing on the page. So, that would be really good, but the actual content of the page doesn't really tell you anything at all. So, it's kind of like the site in itself, for lack of a better word, appears spammy. So that's really not a good indicator to users just from the get-go. So again, like we're working really hopefully closely with this client, like a lot more to engage them a lot more as as they have a little bit more time to really address these kinds of issues, because it is so important to really consider these kinds of metrics. And I'm just like pulling up a couple of the comments as well, because I think that they really kind of highlight these kinds of issues. So if you are seeing negative impacts, like really assess, really have a look at the content that you have in your website, potentially like even do like a good technical audit. But there is a lot of things that can attribute to this that, I'd love to be able to do a case study particularly into it, but I think a lot of this really, really does stem back into the content. Yeah. Does anyone have any more thoughts to add before we go into the next item topic?
All good.
Go for it.
Nope. Yeah. That's all good. Okay, so the next big thing that's happened is, of course, with Google's core Web Vitals that they announced is going to become ranking signals. I think it was only really last week that this sort of started really blowing up and things like that. This won't be now. This is probably this is more than likely like something that will be rolling over in the next 6 months, looking more into 2021. So these are they're sort of like defining like more like page experience signals that we need to look at as webmasters, as SEOs for client sites. So anyone who has opened up their Google Search Console will have seen this in their enhancement reports. The Web Vitals is there, and of course. So that really looks at like the kinds of metrics that is, let me see if I can remember it all off the top of my head. So there's like mobile friendliness, there's safe browsing, HTTPS security, intrusive interstitial guidelines. I don't know if I got that one right. And of course, like the core Web Vitals, which is largest contentful paint, the first input delay, and cumulative layout shifts. So those are the things that they're indicating will be essentially like the new page signals. So that's something to really consider now going into the future. I would kind of like want maybe like Gaston, if you can go into this a little bit more and maybe give your initial thoughts as to what this means for webmasters or anything like that.
Yeah, I think Google is giving us is telling us really, really early to prepare our websites, the same as happened with the migration to the secure protocol, HTTPS. So they are telling us, okay, in 1 year, this is going to happen. Be ready. If not, you will lose rankings. In my view, it's all about making a better experience for users. So Google is telling you, okay, I might be giving you probably half of your traffic, of your website traffic, or even more. Please take care of your users. Please do everything the best way you can. I don't have a defined idea of all this, because we honestly don't know how big the impact will be.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's kind of like HTTPS, like, there was a lot of noise about ranking drops and all that, but once it kind of rolled out, it was kind of very minimal, I would say. So again, with this, like, performance matters. So you should definitely kind of, look towards making that better. But I wouldn't worry too much about like losing rankings over just this factor alone. And I think like in the document itself, when they have, or maybe it was John who said this, they kind of say that even though performance is a factor, like, if your content is good and if we can't find other content that is as good, they'll probably show that content even though performance might not be as good as the other results out there. So yeah, it's kind of hard to kind of say how much of an impact it'll have, but it never hurts to kind of be prepared for it when it kind of comes out.
Yeah. And I think that, okay, so we've been talking about all things things before about mobile friendliness, mobile friendly index in the first place, right? So it's basically saying people have websites for users, like really good user experience, and that's right on the surface. That makes so much sense. But I really love how Google reminds it over time and saying like, but now don't stress. That's fine. It will be in 2021. We'll have we'll have an announcement 6 months before that as well. That's fine. But at the end of the day, it's just caring about your users, which is one of the most important things. And to me, it makes so much sense that, for example, if two websites are competing and one of the websites gives better user experience, why not? It should be ranked higher if other things are equal, like quality of the content and AET and all these things. The website which has really invested in being secure and providing good user experience, in being really providing seamless user experience, right? And when you click and you know where you're clicking it makes sense to rank this website higher.
Yeah. I completely agree. Maybe to echo something that Saijo just said, like, when they rolled out like HTTP to HTTPS, like, a lot of people were quite scared that if they didn't necessarily like get this, to get SSL certificates, they would see massive drops and things like that. And didn't really see too much of an issue. Like, I still see HTTP sites that do rank quite well. But at the same time, like, when it comes to site speed or, these kinds of things, I kind of think it's really interesting that that they're sort of really stated that these are the page speed like experience signals, particularly like the ones like with Web Vitals. So I like to have like broken link checkers like running like in my Google Analytics, or I'll have like a spreadsheet that has a bit of code that will be able to pick it up a little bit better when I do crawls. And particularly the things that I see with external links breaking is sometimes I'll have go into the link. I'm like, oh, well, why is this saying it's broken? Like it's there. But I'll just notice that, like the time to first meaningful content for paint. I didn't say that right. It's essentially the page will load exceptionally slow. So that's why I'm like thinking like, well, that's really interesting. So if it's not really registering that link, they would basically be the same concept as like, the URLs on your website. So when they're coming out with like cool web vitals, like with largest contentful paint, first input delay, cumulative layout shift, like largest contentful paint, that's like a new page load metric. So that's like available as like a performance API, which goes to describe like what the page speed as this page speed of the largest like contentful element of that screen, and that's generally what I would use to sort of as like one of my signals. First input delay. Like first input delay, that measures the time from when a user first interacts with your site. So they're clicking through, they're finding like, oh, okay, cool. Like I'll go to the contact page, I'll do like form submission, or I might just, click on all the buttons and things like that. So the time that's measured from, when that browser actually is able to respond to that interaction, that is now a unit of measure. The cumulative layout shift. So that's an important like user metric for importing like the visual stability, because it really helps quantify how the user experience unexpectedly might do with like any layout shifts, like a low, to ensure like that page is essentially, can I say good? But like those kinds of things are like, like I'm just fascinated. Those are the metrics that we're now being told like to use to measure the performance of speed, like from a site speed perspective. So whether or not this will have a dramatic impact on rankings and organic traffic, down the line, I think the methodology that Google is going through is a lot more is actually giving us a good heads up. They're defining this is what we're going to be looking at. We know that NLP and BERT and EAT for across all sites, and now we've got page speed. I just think that when you kind of think as a bit of a wrap up of all of this stuff, which is a lot, is that it's just going to really try and mature the algorithms that are really assessing rankings. And I think that they're just trying to make it a lot harder to be able to hide behind quick and easy wins. So again, doing White House SEO is going to be more important than ever, and really making sure that best practice is in place, which is a phenomenal segue because that's really what we're here to do here with SEO Meetup, and of course with WITS, so Women in Tech SEO Melbourne. We're here to really give advice. This is for everyone that's listening. Obviously, this is a volunteer-run program that we invite people to come along with their questions and have anything that they're I'm not really sure, but I can't get an answer, or I don't have the money, or I'm really uncertain who to go with. This is a good opportunity just to be able just to ask us anything, and we'll hopefully help you. So yeah, this is the forum to do it.
On the note of the speed metrics of a site, I've seen in the forums that many webmasters are having issues and troubles to get their website indexed, because they have really crappy speed metrics. So if a page loads in 10 seconds, why would Google index a page that loads that slow? So this is a shout out to keep in mind if you have low performance metrics when it comes to speed, you will have troubles getting your website indexed or getting your updates seen by Google and updated in your rankings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the most interesting bit for me, at least on this, is the cumulative layout shift. So traditionally, when you kind of load a page, you want to make it faster, kind of show the content to users. So you might kind of have the base font load up and then show the content. And then once that is there, people can start seeing what it is about. And then you kind of load your font and all that, which might be a fancy font that might take up half the space on your without scroll, you will see that font, something like that. So right now what they're saying is when you kind of do that, delay the loading of font that way, and then apply the font and change the layout, that will be considered as a bad thing. So again, I'm still kind of going through this, understanding how it all works, but that's a change in the way that I would have thought Google preferred a site to work. You would want to kind of show the content as fast as possible to the user, then load the assets in. But now with this, it's kind of, with this particular metric, it might be better if you kind of don't show anything at all, load the entire thing, and then show the entire thing to users. So again, I haven't tested it or anything like that, but that is a change, I guess, in the way that you would want to kind of show things to users. So that's the biggest takeaway for me from this. Again, just starting to look at the whole thing. So don't take this as an answer just yet.
Yeah. Peter has written a really, really good point here. For those freaking about CLS, it's only 5% of Lighthouse score. FID and LCP are a combined 50% of weight. Thank you so much, Peter. Always really, really appreciate your comments, and I can't wait to have you as a guest here quite soon.
And they have a tool as well. I think now you can kind of, they have a calculator sort of tool where you can kind of adjust these different metrics to kind of see what sort of impact it'll have on the results that they provide. So that's again, when speaking to devs, I think that'll be a big help. So go on Google for putting something like that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will share with you guys. So currently I am running a test that I'm really excited once it's all finished. One of my clients is rewriting their legacy CSS. Amazing. There is literally thousands of URLs that this will impact. And I have crawl data. I have like standard deviation graphs. I have all kinds of wonderful things that actually measure all the impact of all the lines of code across these thousands of pages. So when that's all done and ready to go, I'll have a really, really, really juicy thing to share with you guys. Because this is basically what it will impact. And yeah, enough of that little teaser. I'm gonna.
Is that to do with like cutting out dead code from the page, or is it something else?
A lot of the lag was from unused CSS. And there was, but of course, like it's easier said than done. Just being like, oh yeah, this is unused. Like it's not meaningful. Like you just like a lot of testing, a lot of things are needing to be happening before that happens. And especially we're now at the site, we're at the stage where we're testing in the staging site. So very, very fun. And I will give the stage to you, Kristina, because I'm really, really excited for you to share with us your work in e-commerce SEO.
Yeah. So hello to everyone who just joined, who joined after I said hello to everybody. I'm going to share my screen, and of course, I'm going to ask you if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep, there we go.
Amazing. So this talk was originally done at the Women in Tech SEO in London, UK, back in March, and all of this didn't happen. I mean, the COVID thing didn't happen. So, yeah. So today I'm going to talk about how to create high-quality e-commerce categories. Just a few words about myself. I started in SEO about 10 years ago, and I worked on agency side and in-house. And last year, I became a consultant, and I founded Marketing Syrup. I also created the SEO Challenge course, which is the course for everybody who wants to learn SEO properly. And I absolutely love e-commerce. And this love goes back to since I was a child, because I think when I was just like 6 years old, I was really confused because my parents were storing plastic bags, and I was like, why do we store them? I decided that it would be much better to wash them and resell. So at that time, we also just bought a huge fridge, so we had this huge cupboard from the fridge, and I wanted to use it as a stand for my little shop. So this would look like this. My parents didn't buy in for some reason, but still this love for e-commerce has been with me ever since. And when I became a digital marketer, transition into e-commerce, into helping e-commerce businesses was just a natural thing for me. The thing is that e-commerce is growing, and it's estimated that by 2040, around 95% of all the purchases will be done online. And that's huge. And honestly, given the situation that we are living in today, we might assume that we kind of already living in 2040, which is funny. But yeah, e-commerce is growing every single year, and it's just blowing, and that's amazing. And now is the best time for online stores to think about SEO, because it's one of the best channels to invest in, because it drives traffic 24/7, right? So when you think about any website, one of the most important pages on this website, most visited pages, would be the homepage. But when it comes to e-commerce websites, it's actually the category pages which are most important, which get most of the traffic and really lead people to the conversions. So that's why today I'm going to talk about how to build specific categories targeting long-tail keywords that sell. And I'm going to talk about the framework that I created for one of the clients that I worked with, when I was at an agency. I met this client last year, and as I said, at that time I was working at an agency in Toronto. So it was a medium-sized store with many different pages, and it had different promotional products, but they mostly concentrated on t-shirts. So yeah, the main product was t-shirts, but they had a really big issue. All their categories were too general. So basically, they had a variety of different t-shirts, like V-necks, t-shirts for women, t-shirts for men, green t-shirts, yellow t-shirts, etc., etc., etc. But they only had one page to show all these t-shirts, just t-shirts. And imagine how much they were missing. So yeah, it just made me really sad. That's why I wanted to come up with something for them. So as a result, they didn't rank for long tail queries, basically those queries with transactional user intent. And they were just losing money because they let competitors outrank them and be everywhere where they could potentially be. I calculated the impact. So in terms of monthly search volume that they could be capturing, they captured only 19% of the whole potential. So 81% was missing. How do we fix that? The first solution was to create more specific pages to capture lost opportunities. That makes so much sense, right? And so the first approach was to perform keyword research, then identify a set of opportunities with the highest impact so that when we create them, it will really move the needle. And then send content recommendations and internal linking recommendations. It's easy, right? So yeah, and you should follow up like 5 times because to make sure that the recommendations are actually being implemented. Because it's not a real SEO recommendation if it's implemented right away. And it goes back to what Nick told us today about one of the clients, right? Because they don't always implement what you are recommending them, even though they would definitely benefit from implementation. So after these recommendations, 3 months later, the new pages were created and the recommendations were implemented. The traffic was steadily growing, but still there was something that was missing. And this thing is scalability. Because really, the new pages were capturing around 10% of the opportunities. Even though they were of high impact, they still were capturing about 10% more. And if we go back to the scheme that I showed you before, that we were capturing 19% before, we started capturing 29%. But this means that 71% was still missing. And to go through all the steps again would mean spending 1-2 years on implementation. And when I think about that, it just seems too long. I think about flying ships and all this amazing stuff what you see in science fiction movies. So yeah, it's just too long. And that's why we needed something more here. We needed something more that will be faster and will be more scalable. Basically magic, but that's what I'm going to show you. So that goes back to the 8-step e-commerce framework. And this framework will help online stores do exactly this. It will help to create high-quality subcategories, targeting long-tail keywords that sell. And ideally, you don't need to spend years on implementation of this framework. Amazing. And one important thing here is that a store needs to have filters, because this framework is based on the existing filters. And in my case, my client had filters in JavaScript. So the first step of the 8-step framework is to complete the initial keyword research. That's important because you need to understand which filters should become indexable facets. So after the keyword research, you can definitely see which filters you should concentrate on. And the next step is to analyze the existing filters and find those that will become those indexable facets. So we basically take the filters, which the pages which are not really good enough, and we are creating good categories based on them. That's why we need to analyze them. And in my situation, here's an example of how filters look like. And here are the filters that became the foundation for the indexable facets in my case. These were fit, color, brand, and style. So it means that at the end, instead of just t-shirts, we'll have t-shirts for women, we'll have green t-shirts, we'll have New Balance t-shirts, or long sleeve t-shirts. And the filters which did not become indexable facets were price, size, and country of produce. So the thing is that for some websites, having size as an indexable facet might have sense, totally. But that's why you need to perform keyword research at the beginning, right? Because this will give you an understanding which filters you should concentrate on. The third step of the 8-step e-commerce framework is to define the rules for creating indexable facets. That's very important because you don't want to end up creating lots and lots of URLs which won't really serve your website. So the rules that I came up with were something like that. Filters that become indexable facets should only be created for the top level categories. So for example, for t-shirts, if we create yellow t-shirts, then we won't have filters on this page as indexable facets, because again, this will be just too much and we won't be able to control this. That's the main point. We need to control what we are creating. And the second rule was that only the combination of category plus filter should exist. For example, green t-shirt, but not green t-shirt for women. This might be a good idea, but at the end of the day, if we create pages for all the possible combinations, again, we just won't be able to control this. There will be too many moving pieces, and we can end up with a not really good setting. I created this quick scheme which illustrates the points. So the answer is the facet pages, the question is, should I create a facet page based on these filters? So you ask a question, is this facet page for a top level category? If the answer is no, you don't create an indexable facet. If the answer is yes, then you ask a question, will this facet page be based on these filters that we identified in the step 2? And in my situation, it was fit, brand, color, and style. If the answer is yes, then the question is, will this facet be based on the combination of category plus filter? And if the answer is yes, you need to create a facet page. After these pages are created, think about that. Some of them might not have enough products to display. For example, there can be only one product. Is this page really valuable? I think no. And our aim is to create valuable pages. So that's why the step 4 is to define the rules for canonicalization of the new facet pages. And the rule was if a facet page lists 9 or more products, then set up a self-referencing canonical. And if the page has less than 9 products, set up a canonical tag to the parent page. That is, if, for example, a page listing yellow t-shirts has only 2 products, then a canonical tag will point to the t-shirts page. If the page red t-shirts has 11 products, then it will have a self-referencing canonical. That's the main idea. You might think, why 9 products? Because in my situation, 9 was the golden middle. It was a good number because on the one hand, you have this page valuable enough, but on the other hand, it's not a lot of products, because if you set this to 15 and most of the filters will have only like 9 products or 10 products, you won't end up creating any valuable pages after that. But it all depends on your particular situation. But I say 6 products is the smallest amount that you can have. And here is the continuation of the scheme that I showed you before. So if you create a facet page, the question is, does the page list 9 products or more? And if the answer is yes, then it should canonicalize itself. If the answer is no, it should point its canonical to the top level page. The step 5 is setting internal linking to success, because once we create all these pages, we should feed them into current infrastructure of the website. My main point here was that all the new facet pages should be linked with normal href links. That's the main point. So at the end, these filters will become links to the indexable facets, like women, feed women, color, different colors, brands, and styles. The next step of the 8-step framework is to create title and H1 tag templates. The thing is, okay, we created pages, we set up right canonicals, but we still need to make the minimum efforts to make these pages relevant. And how do you do this? By creating relevant title tags and adding at least some content, which is H1 tag in this case. So for the title tags, the template was facet name, category name in Canada, and then the brand name. So for example, it would be Queen T-shirts in Canada and then the brand name. The idea here is that afterwards, you can definitely go and customize each and every title tag if you want to. But for a scalable solution, having a template really helps to proceed much faster versus creating customized titles for like 200 or 2,000 pages. And the template for the H1 tag was similar. It was just the same, but without the brand name at the end. The 7th step is to test everything. That's where the fun part begins, right? Because it may take lots of time, and it's really important in all the steps to have acceptance criteria, so that you know what the outcome should be and you know how the outcome looks like when you achieved it. That's in general, user stories and acceptance criteria are my favorite, because that's how you can properly communicate what you want to achieve to developers and partner with them. And the step 8 is to improve. I really love this scheme from Alexis Sanders' talk back in 2018 at Moz conference. It shows how you can create something and then incrementally improve it. The idea is to create something which is good enough for now, and then you are not overwhelmed by this huge gap between the current state and the state that you want to achieve, so that you don't even start. So you create something which is good enough, and then you go step by step to become best in class. I really love this analogy, and basically this e-commerce framework is based on this. You create good enough pages, and then you can improve it. You can add dynamic content to them, for example. That's one of the things that you can do. But if you try to add everything from the beginning, the outcome might not just happen, because it will be too long. It will be too hard for everybody to digest what you're trying to achieve. So it's better to go in steps. Where are we at right now? So not right now, but at the time when I was leaving company, we were at the testing. And as an SEO, as any of you, I want to see the results of my work as soon as possible, and the implementation as soon as possible. But yeah, it just sometimes takes time. But the question is, will this framework save 2 years in implementation? Yes, 100%. I know that they already implemented it, and from what I could get from the people who are still working in the company, is that this generated about 2 million in revenue, in additional yearly revenue for this company. So yes, it definitely works. Will it capture more traffic and revenue? As I said, yes, 100%. But does it still require resources? Yes. And it requires lots of resources put upfront. That's the main point. But it's better than creating separate pages one by one. That would take you lots and lots of time. Some of you might have a question, a valid question, but Kristina, what about the crawl budget? I regularly cover Google Advanced Hangouts. I'm stuck because I'm thinking I regularly cover, but I used to regularly cover them. Now I don't cover them mostly, but the thing is that in one of the recent Google Advanced Hangouts, John Mueller said that crawl budget is something that most websites don't need to worry about unless you have millions and millions of pages. So in my situation, as I said, this was a mid-sized online store. So for us, it wasn't a really huge deal. But of course, if you have millions and millions of pages, crawl budget can be a real issue. I just love this meme by Izzy Smith. So, but there is an answer to this. Instead of canonicals, use noindex. So in this tab with the canonicals, when we said if the page has less than 9 products, the core framework says that you need to have a canonical pointing to a top-level category. But in our situation, if we are afraid to waste crawl budget, we can add meta name robust content noindex. Noindex follow or noindex no follow, doesn't really matter to it. And at the end, just a second, and at the end it will be better for crawl budget. It doesn't mean, so the thing is, it doesn't mean that Google doesn't crawl the pages. Noindex doesn't disallow crawling. But it means that over time, Google will see this, that there is no index, it will respect it, and it will crawl the pages much less frequently. That's the point. Here is the summary of all 8 steps. And these are, the first step is to complete the initial keyword research. The second step is to analyze the existing filters and define those that will become the foundation for the indexable facets. The third step is to define the rules for creating indexable facets so that you don't end up with lots of pages with huge machines that you can't really control. The fourth step is to define the rules for canonicalization for the new pages, or if your website is huge, then for adding no index tags. The fifth step is to set internal linking to success, basically to add the newly created pages to the existing website infrastructure. The next step is to create title and H1 tag templates so that it's scalable, and at the same time these tags are relevant, because otherwise we won't be creating valuable pages. The seventh step is to test everything, and the eighth step is to improve, because we never stop improving, right? As I said, acceptance criteria are really, really important when it comes to all the technical recommendations and specifically to this e-commerce framework. So I created acceptance criteria for every step, and you can download the acceptance criteria here. As I said at the beginning, I also have a free e-commerce SEO newsletter. So basically, if you download the acceptance criteria, you will be automatically added to this newsletter. It goes weekly or sometimes bi-weekly, and it has free tips, amazing tips on e-commerce SEO. So yeah, make sure to subscribe. Thank you. It was really great to present it. I imagine that you're all here. I'm not talking to myself. I'm not.
No, that was so awesome. I was just like, whoa. Yeah, you downloaded so much really, really amazing, and also really great actionable advice. like I don't know about you guys, but I have so many comments. Oh wait, sorry, I have so many questions because I just thought that was that was really, really good. It's very clear. We all love a good step-by-step process, and when you're looking at particularly pages, particularly sites with like thousands of products and things like that, and they're kind of coming to you and saying like, oh, okay, so this is my site, like how do I do the SEO thing, like how do we look at this, and you're like, all right, how do I let's sit down and like wrap our heads around this old mess. Yeah, awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, if anybody have any questions or afterwards, just reach out to me on Twitter.
I think we've got a few questions, so we'll kind of probably start going through those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
All right. So
I reckon
I think Gaston has got one, so maybe we'll start off with you, mate. Go for it.
Oh, damn it. So what happens if have you had any experience with pages that are just on the threshold? Imagine a page that has 9 products, tomorrow has 11 products, the next month has 9 products, and so on. So if you set the no index with 9 products and you have that varying every certain time, do you see any particular behavior with that?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And the idea is that ideally it can be done automatically, but let's say that if the pages, so it's so basically the framework will be suitable for a website in general. But if you're hands-on working on this website, that's what we are paid for, right? Giving specific advice for this particular website. So if I know that this client has dynamic stock that can potentially differ, that's totally fine. If they have, for example, 6 products on the page, on the category page right now, but they're going to add the stock in the future. So it's okay to have this page indexed without index, no index, index, no index, canonical, then self-referencing canonical, and then canonical to the category page. Just this jumping won't work. So it's basically tailoring this framework to your specific situation. If the stock is dynamic and if it's being added, then 100% have these pages indexable and have canonicals pointing self-referencing canonicals.
Yeah, amazing.
Awesome.
I'll follow up with the next question from Peter Mead, who asked a really good question about migrating e-commerce platforms. So maybe like your Magento 2 to like Shopify, or BigCommerce, even Magento 2. Like what's your kind of advice for avoiding loads and loads of problems with that?
It's funny because I've just last week I just started my YouTube channel, and the first video is my creating content management system, and it has also a framework, the Rainbow framework, with all the steps. But yeah, the main idea when you might create a content management system. So why it's Rainbow? Because I imagine the migration, the whole process, as for example, you have one cloud. I mean, without an image, it sounds interesting, but just bear with me. You have old content management system on the one side, and you have a new content management system on the other side. And the rainbow with all these bows is like a bridge between them. So the idea is to bridge the gap, to find, first of all, okay, so your current content management system has specific things, specific customizations, specific URL structure. Like, for example, in Shopify, you would have products by default in the URLs, and in Magento, you don't have this. So before the migration, you need to know all the specifics and bridge the gap between them. If you can customize Magento to have this products part in the product URLs, then go for it. If you can't, then it should be reflected in your redirects map, because you need to map these pages. So basically, it's finding what you have now, and finding what your end content management system has and bridging the gaps between those two.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, like, one of the big things to also, take into consideration is that, for different platforms, like, say, like for Shopify, like the sitemap is going to be static, the robust TXT is going to be static, like a lot of the things within the theme code, you can't really do too much unless, like, you really know your development stuff. I'm looking at you, Peter. And of course, like you can't necessarily, like, do anything with the like, the hosting or anything like that, because, like, it's Shopify, so they kind of, like, they own that. So there are all things just to take into consideration.
Yeah, the idea is to know all these limitations and genuinely find ways to bridge this between the management systems.
Yeah. I'm kind of following up. Sorry, I know you're about to ask a question, Saijo, but I'm being a little bit selfish and ask my own question, which is, like, what is your favorite CMS for e-commerce sites?
I get this question a lot. So I think
guilty.
I think the answer is also it depends, because for example, Shopify is better if you think about not tech-savvy people who won't have hand-holding throughout the process and in general throughout the process of managing their own website. Well, and they don't have a huge budget, you can't recommend Magento to them, right? So I'd say that each content management system tailors to its needs. So Shopify will be for those who are not tech-savvy and who just have, I would say, have not a lot of products. Magento is a really good solution. So I used to work for a company which created Magento extensions. It's a really awesome solution, but it's a beast. You should have developers, full-time developers in most situations to support this, and it's expensive. The extensions are expensive. Like having everything in place is expensive, because even if you buy an extension, in many situations you need to customize it a little bit to match your specific things on your website. So you need to take this into consideration as well. And, like, the golden middle is WooCommerce, and I really like it because I love WordPress, and it's not really hard. Right, but again, for not tech-savvy person, even WordPress is too much sometimes. But yeah, I really love WooCommerce, and I worked with a number of websites for it, and yeah, it's just amazing. So it's like a golden middle. If you don't have huge budget, and at the same time, if you can somehow understand how to log in the system, so that WooCommerce is one of the best solutions here.
Yeah. That is kind of like, if there was like a textbook answer for that, I feel like that's pretty much on the money. I'll head to you, Saijo, to ask the next question.
So I think my question was, like, with this particular example that you gave, what platform was that on? Were there any plugins that kind of helped you with this, or was most of these kind of things like custom built solutions for those?
Yeah, it was a custom build solution, because the website was on the custom management system. So it's basically, a custom solution.
Right. And is there any example domains that we can kind of, look at? Is that something that you might be willing to share?
Hi.
Sorry.
For a second there, I was like, wow, Kristina.
She's all about SEO. She wants to learn about SEO,
Oh.
Hey, sweetie.
Working from home during this time.
Sorry about that.
That's all good.
Okay.
So, is there any example sites that we can look at to kind of see how this kind of, was implemented, what sort of impact it had, and all that?
Definitely, I definitely can't share this website, but what I say is, when you look at Amazon, it has this this idea in place. It has lots of different subcategories and links to the subcategories. And when you filter out, you sometimes end up on the not on filters, but on the basically landing pages, because if people use filters, like this kind of filters a lot, they can create. Amazon can create an indexable category in that. And by the way, I remember for Magento, when I was working at the extension company, they had a really great plugin, a really great extension, which basically gave you an opportunity to choose filters and to create landing pages based on this. It's going back to some plugins that can help with this. The framework was not created for a Magento website, but still, this extension, you can go there, choose filters that you think or your customers are using, and based on this, a landing page will be created. You can update the title tags there. You can upload your text and all the stuff.
Yeah,
excellent.
That's awesome. I'll ask the next question. So Peter Misinovic asks, how would you handle faceted logic for retailers with multiple products? Types without like burdens for devs. Size might be viable for TVs, not for skincare. That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I think that then the best approach would be to define types of. So, for example, this framework would be good for skincare. Not framework. Okay, the filters. The second step is identify filters that will be used, right? So, feed, color, etc. For skincare, there will be different things. So, I would say that to find the categories, the types of categories with the same filters, and in the second step, your acceptance criteria will be bigger, because you would say that if the category is this, and that, then use these filters for creating facet pages. If the category is this or that, then use these filters. So it adds an additional layer of complication. But yeah, if you have different categories with different filters, that's something to consider.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I would say that it's just, in the second step, when you define which filters, you just define on the category levels.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's so cool. I do also have another. Sorry, I have so many questions.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Got to be respectful to the commenters, but also, actually, this is a good question that I'm sure applies to a lot of people that are listening. So, when you are a product is, they're not wanting to discontinue it, or something's going on, and a site that it typically has lots and lots of products and then gets rid of lots and lots of products. What is kind of your recommendations around that? Just from a process.
Yeah. So I'd say that if this product is discontinued, so there are two types of discontinued products. If it's discontinued forever, or if it's just out of stock temporarily. If it's discontinued forever, I'd say that if there is another product which is very similar, or can be a really good substitute to the first product, then you can set up a redirect. But at the same time, it's sometimes good to just leave this product for some time and let people know that, okay, it's out of stock, but there are some other products that you might like. If you want this product, you might like other products like this, basically similar products. This way, you end up providing good user experience, and you're providing solutions. Yeah, you communicate properly that it's currently not available, we are sorry, but here are the other things that we can recommend to you. And it also works for if the product is temporarily discontinued. The only thing is that I'd say that if it's temporarily, then still you need to remove it from blogs like promo blogs or bestsellers, not to tease people. You know, this psychology when you can't get something, you want it even more. So remove it from these blogs, and also in the on the category pages, if you have like pagination, if you have many products, just put them the out of stock products at the end, so that you again don't tease people and don't make them go through so many products which are out of stock before seeing the in-stock products. But going back to your question, yeah, just in most of the cases, just leave the page for some time, even if it's the product is discontinued forever. If you have lots of traffic there, just communicate that, sorry, it's out of stock.
Yeah, that's really the really important one. Like, does it have organic traffic? Does it have any links pointing to it? Like, you want to be able to utilize that. It came to mind because I've got a client that I've just like had to just basically just write out the full process of how to do this step, because they were just like, yeah, cool, we're just gonna discontinue and delete all these pages, and like, oh great, so all these 404s that have just increased, that's where that's coming from. Great.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Happened to me many times when you just, our traffic is down, but then you go to Google Analytics and see that the main pages that were driving traffic were these products which were really popular, and now they're removed. And it's even worse when it happens to categories. I remember I was like doing keyword search and writing the title tags, and I'm literally going to the website to update the title tag. The category doesn't exist. I'm like, am I dreaming? Like, what's going on? What's going on here?
Oh gosh.
And then they were removing the categories just as I was doing this. And they were like, yeah, but we don't have these products anymore. We're not going to have them. No.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
And you kind of don't really want to get on the phone and be like, what are you doing? You kind of need to massage it in a little bit and just be like, well, it's not great, but the recommendations would be probably better to do this, and kind of have to tiptoe around it just so that no one's no one gets too mad about us being like, what are you doing?
So I have a question. Yeah. So I used to work for a really large website in e-commerce. It's called Mercado Libre. It's well known in Latin America. It's like the Amazon of Latin America. So they have this huge structure of subdomains. So, for example, in Argentina, they have 50 different subdomains. Each subdomain represents a separate top-level category. So most of my clients usually ask me, should I do the same as Mercado Libre does? Because they have a really strong organic presence and they have way too many subdomains. What's your opinion on that? Should we use subdomains? Should we use subfolders? But I'm not I'm not asking because of this war against this war about subdomain versus subfolders, but more on the line of should we recommend to our clients doing the same as the big player on that niche is doing? For example, imitating Amazon or imitating Mercado Libre or eBay or whatever.
Just a question to make sure that that I understand you correctly. They had a category, for example, candles, and then the website. The other, okay.
So the actual categories are cell phones, that Mercado Libre, real estate, that Mercado Libre, and so on. T-shirts, shoes, and on and on.
Okay. So the thing is that definitely for having if you have a website which has products basically of the similar type, if you're cater for I don't know, if it's if these are wellness products, if this apparel and all this stuff, I would definitely not recommend having subdomains, because having subdomains adds so much difficulty to your like daily operations in general. And as we know, subdomains are not usually treated as part of the website necessarily. So I'd say just having categories, like in my example, this would be t-shirts, and then if they had, for example, bags, to have like bags dot and the domain. No, I would definitely not recommend this. And even though sometimes big brands might have this, it doesn't mean that we need to copy big brands just because they're big brands. There are so many things where big brands are fucking up. Sorry, I'm just being honest. And like the Nike website, they have
spilling the tea.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many things that you don't want to copy. So before copying, you need to evaluate how good this is. Maybe this part is good. Okay, I can use this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all that they are doing is right. And to be honest, if you're a big brand, you can get away with so many things if you compare with smaller brands. But the one thing that you told is that they have like cell phones, real estate, right? Kind of things. Cell phones and real estate seem to me really different topics. So in this case, having subdomains for them might make sense, because my first idea was that these are just again like bags or t-shirts, etc. These are the same type of products, so having subdomains is not a good solution here. But this is something completely different. If this business has lots of verticals, so yeah, having subdomains might make sense.
Is there any tip you can share with us about convincing your clients not to follow the big brand? Because in my experience, most of my clients always say, I want to imitate, in this case, Mercado Libre or Amazon, because they are the top of mind brand. So if they do it, everything should be fine.
So simple thing for that, like, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I'd say that it's obviously hard to make this point, but at the end of the day, they're the top of the mind, but they're not necessarily the top of the mind because they have this installation on the website. They are spending, for example, lots of money on brand awareness, and they has been there for 20 years, for example. I'm just making up things. I don't know this website. But the question is, the client, do you have this money to spend? Do you have this online presence to implement the not really best solution? Can you get away with this? Yeah, but it's hard. It's a hard point.
And it's also that, like, big brands get treated a bit differently, like, when it comes to Google, like I think they do. So, like, the way that Amazon will crawl, like, Google will crawl Amazon, for example, they'll have more resources for it. They will be a bit more, like, lenient in the way that if it finds a mistake, it'll go to something else and continue the crawl, because they know it's Amazon. They will have a lot of things like that. Whereas if you are Joe's product site.com.au, you won't be like that. They will kind of, hit few mistakes and say, yep, there's a broken site. Let's jump out to get something else. So do you want to kind of, provide something like that to Google? Probably not, unless you kind of have that brand authority and all those other things in place. So unless you are Amazon, don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if you look at Google's blog post, for example, right? Like some of their blog posts will have a GIF that's like 20 MB. You wouldn't expect like a site to do that. That's stupid.
Yeah.
And Google will tell you it's stupid, but they still do that. But that doesn't make it right? So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing, just to kind of like bookend, just with brand authority, because I've got one of like my enterprise level clients that pretty much asked like, and this was around like when the schema, the review schema stuff like came out, and they're just like, they literally just went through Amazon and was like, oh, cool, like interesting, like, yeah, but why can't we do that? Like, why is that not going to be something that we can sort of implement? And it was like, the first thing was like, well, first of all, you're not Amazon. There are sites out there like Amazon, like Booking.com, that are like massive media buyers, and they like you're just not on the same kind of level. And as an SEO, you're paying us to like give you the advice to like map out a framework that we feel is best suited for you, and also that's best practice. Like we're trying to give you the information that Google is saying that you should do, like essentially like white hat things. So in that particular thing, like if you've got like self-serving reviews, like maybe that is absolutely not the kind of thing that you need to have like embedded there as like a third-party widget. Like they literally went like, I think it was actually the day, oh gosh, this is like September last year. They're like literally the day that Google came out with that blog was the same day that they were about to sign a contract to do the thing. So that was a very like frantic phone call, just being like, no. And a lot of questions as to why, and they do it, and all that sort of other stuff. And it just, it really goes back to like, just because other people can doesn't mean that it's right. Great. I think that's really a good way, place to sort of finish up here. I kind of feel like this is like our very first, like how like YouTubers have collabs. You've got your YouTube channel, and of course you've got that amazing newsletter, which I'm convinced I'm signing up for. Like I've signed up for Marie Haynes, I've signed up for Aleda, I've signed up, and now with you. So I'm really excited to have that flood my inbox. But yeah, please tell us and the wonderful audience here how we can find you after the fact.
So you can find the best way to find me is first of all, my website is marketingsyrup.com. Yeah, it has newsletter there, and it has everything. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter every day. So my Twitter is Azarchix, so it's AZARCHICK. Azarchix. So yeah, reach out to me there. Or I'm Kristina Azarenko. You can also find me on Twitter using this. I just didn't think about that. Yep.
No. Amazing. And lastly, what's your YouTube handle?
Okay, my YouTube handle is SEO Follow.
SEO Follow.
Yeah, SEO Follow, because you need to follow SEO advice.
Oh, nice. Well, guys, like subscribe, and click that notification bell so you can catch like all of Kristina's latest videos, as well as this channel. I feel weird in doing this like every single time, but hey, we're on YouTube now. So yeah, that was absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for your time. That was phenomenal. One last thing, I'll put like all of the links in the description below. So I think I've already added your Twitter handle there. But the amazing talk that you did today, like is that available anywhere for people to look after the fact as well?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll give you all the links, but basically, let me share my screen once again, just for a second, because it will be easier to do this. Here it is. It has the breakdown of the steps. You can download acceptance criteria there, and the deck is also on this URL, and it's on my website.
Oh, damn. So look at that clean URL. That's awesome.
It's there, so you can go and check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristina. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. Up next, we have Gaston Riera, who's going to share with us enterprise level data analysis. I'm so excited to do this, and I know you're a little bit nervous, but at the same time, as you've hopefully experienced with this is like a friendly platform. So yeah, we're just really excited to have you here.
Take it away, mate.
Thanks for overselling it.
Oh, no.
Please let me know if you are seeing my screen.
Yep.
There you go.
There we go.
So, a little bit of a heads up. I will not be talking about really high enterprise data manipulation because I think it will be way too much. So I kind of make it a little bit simpler. This is me. Hi, hola. I'm Gaston Riera. I'm originally from Argentina. My first language is Spanish. So if you have any question in Spanish or you are more comfortable speaking in Spanish, please do so. So a little bit about me. I love solving SEO problems. I've studied electronic engineering. I got a degree in electronic engineering, but I never worked as that type of engineer. I don't think I will ever work as an electronic engineer. That's why my mind is set to solve problems. Currently, I'm working as an SEO specialist at Envato, more specifically at Envato Market, where you may know some brands like Team Forest, Cold Canyon, and others. Previously, before moving to Australia, I was working for Mercado Libre. It's the largest e-commerce website in Latin America. They usually name it as the Amazon of Latin America. They have over, 1 billion unique users per month, 10 billion URLs, and it's way massive. I've been in the SEO industry since 2012 with my own projects and freelancing. And also I have the luxury of being a gold product expert in the Google Master Forum. So that's it. I don't know if it means something, but I have that badge in my profile. More about my experience and my CV or my resume in my pinned tweet on my Twitter. That is Gaston Riera. So let's dive right into it. The storyline that I want to share with you is some path and ideas that I usually walk through to get more questions and answers from the data I have. Some considerations: most of the ideas that I will be sharing with you applies to large websites, at least with 500,000 URLs, so we can use log files. It's really important to have an inquisitive mindset. More than inquisitive mindset, I think it will be an open mind to analyze the same data from different point of view. And you have to know really well your site and the structure and the products that site sells. Because if you don't understand that, you will never be able to formulate any question. Someone said a few days back that if you have the right question, you have half of the problem already solved. That's why I'm here. That's what I want to talk to you about. So my starting questions when I jump into a new client or a new site or whatever is are there any opportunities not seen? Are there any low-hanging fruits or any quick wins? That's the easiest question that we should be asking ourselves. Always keep in mind that this is about exploration. You have to play with the data, spend hours and hours looking at data and trying to understand patterns and what's going on over there. It's not that easy to just download 3 gigabytes of data and do 3 clicks and you will have all your answers there. It's never that easy. So this is how I usually go about it. It's going to be 3 steps. The first one is break down the data, sort sections, category, item types, or products by sales, revenue, conversion rate, marginal revenue, or any other metric that you think is important, that the business you're handling think is important. After this step, you will have figured out the some low-hanging fruits or some sections of the site that deserve more attention. The second step is to understand how users and Google interact with your site, not specifically what type of page they load, but the steps they take. What's the second interaction after a user lands on your site? Is there any orphan page, or which are the last interaction the users usually do? Again, you will be filtering down, reducing a lot your data set every step of the way. And the third step is using your SERP's data. This is going into Google Ads and Search Console and get ranking, queries, impression, search volume, everything you can get to size the opportunity you have in your hands. At this point, I'm not using, and I don't want to use any other tools, any private tools, let's say any other tool different than Google, such as SEMrush or Ahrefs, because this is an exploratory process. Once you have a much smaller data set, you then start playing with it and coming up with more and better questions. So again, this is a friendly reminder, play with the data. After these 3 steps, you will have a much, much smaller data set, and you probably will already have a few clues and possible questions or answers to your questions. But there always are roadblocks, because this is SEO. It wouldn't be interesting if we wouldn't have any roadblocks. The typical roadblocks that I found, again, this is managing large websites, is, for example, with Google Analytics, when you filter a lot, when you narrow down the information, when you get too much, or you are looking at way too large period of time, you get sampling, and you end up with a report based on a really, really low percentage of sessions. This is the worst, because you're saying, okay, I have a Google Analytics, probably the company has Analytics 360, and way too much, with a lot of data, and you say, okay, so this data is not good for me. This sampling is the worst. I'm not getting any confidence in this data. That's a first roadblock. A second one is with Search Console. This is really common for us. And when you filter down again to a specific query, a specific URL, specific country, or a small amount of days, you get inconsistencies. The reports tell you a different number, and the table below is showing that it's really frustrating. So another roadblock. And the last one, this is the juiciest one, I guess. It's when you query the Search Console API in a large website that has been around for a long period of time, you get 500,000 rows of information. That's crazy. It usually breaks any Excel or Google spreadsheet that you may be using. So it's like your hands are tied here. But I usually want to tell the people out there that there are always solutions. Always break down your data. Try to play with smaller pieces of information. Try to separate the websites, the sections, or the product that you're working with. If you still are finding these roadblocks, you can always use the third wheel. There is log files. Log files is really tricky at this point, because you have to have some knowledge, some developer knowledge, or you have to have a friendly developer that can help you out with that, or you usually end up paying really, really expensive tools. What I want to tell you here that you don't need to waste or to spend thousands of dollars in expensive tools. You just need a friendly developer and know what type of information you want to get out of the log files. With the log files, you can confirm your ideas and confirm what information is missing from analytics or from Google Search Console. With that, you at least you have enough confidence to go with the development to the developer team and say, hey, I want to implement this thing because of this and because of that. Because of the extent of this talk, I will not say much more about log files. If you have any further question about this, please shoot any questions. I find it really complex to just name it and talk about 2 or 3 minutes. It could be just an hour-long talk about just using log files. And that's it. My advice to each of you is start small and simple to get quick answers. And when you have those answers, you will get, but different questions will pop in your mind, and you will start practicing making better and better questions. Okay, I think I was talking too fast. So a few tips that I would like to offer you is, for example, break down your Search Console property into different properties. You can have up to I think it's 100 different properties per site on Search Console, per domain. Sorry. Break down your domain into different item types or subfolders, subdirectories, subdomains. Make it really easy for you to understand the data that Google may offer you. You can also do it with several folders, subfolders, and with that you can find juicy information such as the coverage report in a, let's say, a level 5 subfolder. If you have, let's say, 1 million URLs on that level, you have 1 million URLs on your site, and you have 100,000 URLs on the level 5 subfolder, you can see much more information there than looking at 1 million URLs. That's one of the tricks that I use. Also, learn to use regular expression filters on Google Analytics. It's kind of the learning curve for regular expression is really tough at the beginning, but you can extract a lot of information with it. It proved to be really, really useful, at least for me. Another one is to use the Search Console API on Google Sheets. There is a really cool add-on for that, and you can play much more with the data on Google Sheets, and you can overcome the limitation that you find on the Search Console UI. For example, you cannot filter negative keywords, or you cannot. If you want to play around with, for example, brand terms and non-brand terms, and on Search Console and the Search Console UI is really difficult. You cannot filter down by that, but you can do it on Google Sheets. I know someone would tell me that I can do that on Data Studio, but Data Studio is really good for reporting, not for data analyzing. So if you want to analyze, let's say, 25K of rows, 25,000 rows, it's really hard to do it on Data Studio. I prefer to do it on Google Sheets. And the last tip that I could tell you, this is really, it's known on the industry, but I often remember it. It's a friendly reminder that separate your sitemaps. If you have, let's say, 10 different categories, you can create 10 different sitemaps. If you have 100 categories, create 100 different sitemaps. That way you can monitor and track the performance and the indexation of each of your categories. You may end up finding, for example, that's something that I found last week, that let's say a third level category was not getting indexed at all because Google was not seeing it. Why was Google not seeing it? Because there were another crawling budget issues. But that way, with separate segments, we found out that we were having issues with that specific category. It wasn't the case that category was just a low performance. It was not getting crawled by Google. If it's not crawled, it's not indexed. Plain and simple. And this is the end of my presentation. I think I did super quick. I'm still nervous. So a few links about the tools that I showed you: the Search Console API Sheets add-on, a Regex web tool, the Google Analytics API add-on for Google Sheets, and the best tool that I found about Google Analytics is the Query Explorer. So you can easily make your API calls in a web UI. And that's it.
Well done. Nice job, bud.
Thank you. No one. I didn't say it before, but this is my first talk completely in English. The last 3 days I was super nervous, and still am super nervous.
I think you did an amazing job, considering that this isn't your first language. For anyone listening, Gaston is a powerhouse. In your native language of Spanish, but also too as a a product contributor and a Moz forum commentator. I'm sorry. I know that they're not the right titles to assign, but I've even caught myself just being like, oh, I wonder, and then Googling it, being like, oh, Gaston's actually already answered that. So there's a lot of really, really good, potential for some really great questions, which are the first one is actually from Kristina. So I might actually have you answer that one yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah. Not answer, ask.
Oh, sorry, ask.
Go for it.
Yeah. Answer itself.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the talk. It was amazing, and it's always great to look at the same things at a different perspective angle, and it gives you so many ideas. But yeah, that's the point, right, of the talk. So yeah, thank you. It was really amazing. I have 2 questions. So the first question is, you mentioned that you slice the data and you use different approaches for that. But how do you usually approach it? Do you slice it by category, by other different parameters? How do you do that? When analyzing.
The go-to answer is it depends. Of course, it depends. But in a more generalistic way, the first slice that you could do is by category or by folders, depending on your size structure. So most of the sites that today are ranking on Google have several folders and subfolders, so you can start there. If you have a specific your structure, let's say you don't have any folders, there will always be some parameter or some ID or something. Yeah, you can filter them. And usually in marketplaces or in e-commerce sites, there are the SKU or the item type is, or the item identification number is on the URL, so you can filter it out by regex or something like that. Does it answer your question?
Yep. Thank you. And it's truly a shame that Google Search Console doesn't have regular expression support.
Oh boy.
It doesn't have yet.
Yeah, I hope that. The second question I had is that when you need to combine Google Analytics and Google Search Console data to analyze specific information about the URLs, how do you usually do this? How do you usually combine it and analyze it?
Well, that's a real question. First of all, you have to have a small data set. You cannot combine GA and GAC data with, I don't know, 1,000 URLs. My way of doing it is be sure that I want to analyze only, let's say, 10 URLs. With those 10, I will be looking at with a microscope to understand what's going on there, and pulling up the data from Google Analytics or Search Console. It's pretty easy, and I tend to automate most things that I can. I really like Google Spreadsheets, so I automate everything on spreadsheets, and getting, let's say, a year of data, start doing graph and comparisons and seasonality and all things that I can do. I don't know if that answers your questions.
Well, yeah, that's the approach that you use. Yeah, it answers. You definitely can't say like how it works for every this and that website, but yeah, it definitely answers. Thank you very much.
It depends on what level of how deep you want to go with the data you're looking at. I usually do it by URL or by keyword. So if looking at the keyword level, for example, it's really hard to answer that without naming any brand. But at
replace with widget. Yeah.
At the keyword level, let's say you want to combine to have certainty on the metrics that you're using, because at the end you have to convince the development team to prioritize your project. So combining, let's say, sessions with impressions with click-through rate, everything in just one metric. I love using coming up with equations from 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 different metrics, come up with just one number to say, okay, this is the opportunity. Let's say one number to size the opportunity for each keyword or each URL, something like that. It's really ad hoc work. I don't know. I've never. This is the first time that I get this question. I don't know how to answer my mind. Sorry for that.
And I think one other thing that, when you're looking at multiple data sources, it's never going to tally up. There will always kind of be that difference because of the way that data is collected and the way that different things mean in different platforms. So you should always be kind of mindful about that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And in regards to your point about sitemap, splitting it up, that's really great. And I really love it, especially since in Search Console, at least with the new interface, you can actually see how, these different URLs and these different sitemaps can work together. So, especially with that, it's really useful in splitting out the sitemap and having things especially for a larger site, split out that way.
Yeah, definitely. I found it really, really useful when you are working in really, really large websites with, let's say, a billion URLs. So you can, it's the indexation issues and crawling issues are your everyday.
Yeah.
Food,
so with Search Console, it's really good that you can just go in and say, yep, just these URLs from these sitemaps. You can just pick that and kind of see that within their report. So you don't have to export it out or anything. So, which is really great.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I was just like starting to write it out, but I'll ask you a question. Maybe going back to like log files. So like at what point, I know there's like massive can of worms, but I'll try and keep it quite broad. With like, at what point do you sort of, you're looking at all of this and think, you know what, actually, going through and doing like a log file analysis is actually something that we really need. It's something that is beneficial, and maybe I might go and reach out to a developer to build up like past classes to be able to read the log files line by line, apply all that awesome like regular expression and hopefully extract something useful from that data. So yeah, what point does that sort of like lead to?
I think it depends on what type of issues you are working with. If the way I named the log files only to confirm your theories and to look at user behavior, to have more confidence in your metrics, in your data. But that's just one side of the coin. The other side of the coin with log file is analyzing crawl budget and indexation issues. If you have a large website and you see in your search console properties that let's say half of your website is not being crawled or is not being indexed, you will need to take a look at your log files. The thing is, in the log files, you can see all the data that's going through your servers. So you can analyze either the bot behavior or the user behavior or both.
Yeah.
That's the way I go about it. I think to prove the need of log file analysis depends on your issue. That's the way I go about it.
And also, if you can actually get the log files from your client.
What?
I mean, that's, they're just like, excuse me, so what do you want? I don't know, I've had sort of like really kind of like 50-50 ability of being able to get those.
Yeah. It's also, in the last few years, log file analysis was the new shiny thing. So there are a lot of tools and a lot of companies, services that want to charge you way too much money to analyze your data or to handle your data. I think it's not fair. You have to have a little bit of time looking at it. And if I could do it, anyone could do it. I'm no special.
I don't know. I think you're really intelligent. So I'm like,
thank you. Thank you. I honestly believe that anyone could do it.
Yeah.
Another thing with log file is like I don't think you really need it for really small websites. It's only once you kind of, your site is really big and starts to have a lot of indexation issues and stuff like that. That's really where the power of log files really comes in. And if it's a very small site, maybe you can, get away without that in most cases. I'm sure there are edge cases there too, but yeah.
The metric that I usually look when deciding if you need log file analysis is the Search Console coverage report. If you sum all the numbers you have in the 3 columns, the valid, the excluded, and the warnings, if that sum is over 500,000 URLs, then you will probably need a log file analysis. Even if you have, let's say, 90% of your URLs are excluded, you have a really big issue there. You may have a really big issue.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. So go check that out, guys. If this may apply to you. I kind of want to go back to what you were saying about with Data Studio, as like that's a really good way to be able to report, but it's not a really good way to be able to analyze stuff. I thought that maybe I could use Data Studio to be able to like have a little bit more of a deep dive in what's going on with backlinks and things like that with the site. So, having like my customer reports and all that sort of other stuff, be able to identify these things. But of course, Google Search Console, looking at the anchor text you can pull into Started Data Studio, Google Analytics, looking at specifically those URLs that they're pointing to, maybe SEMrush using the keyword position tool, and like trying to put all of that in, like just with the time, and see how that goes over time. I don't know. I'm just kind of like spitting this out there because that was just like kind of like a I have this really interesting idea to be able to do this, but I don't know. What are your thoughts around that?
Again, I think it depends on the skill set that everyone has. In my experience, the way I go about it is I don't like Data Studio because it kind of ties my hands. I want to analyze in different levels the same information, say data, and make too many equations and math treatments with it. But again, if you're comfortable with Data Studio, you should use it. It's a really powerful tool. But honestly, I don't feel comfortable recommending it if I don't use it.
I think that one of the biggest things about Data Studio is that it can help you visualize what you're trying to analyze, right? So you're not necessarily, when it comes to links, it's much easier to analyze them when you first visualize what's going on in general, and then you can say, okay, I need to pay close attention to these particular links. But it's just an additional layer to your analysis. It definitely doesn't analyze for you, but it just helps you to find the points which need your attention more.
Yeah.
So I think, it will work.
Yeah, it's me trying to find like a round hole for a round peg. Like how do I look at all these different data points without having to toggle through and I don't know, kind of like export them out probably into a spreadsheet or something like that. The next question, we've got like a couple of questions that are coming through. So Sarab asks, are you using programming language to analyze large data sets?
SQL is SQL a programming language? I don't think it is. But no, I don't use any programming language. That's why I always recommend Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel and the APIs add-ons for that, because you don't need to program nothing, to code anything, single line of code, because the learning curve is way too hard. I want to tell the world that for big data analysis on SEO, you don't need to be a Python developer. You don't need to learn machine learning and all of those fancy things. You can do your work. You can find way too many low-hanging fruits and come up with strategies if you make the right questions, if you slice data the way you want to do it.
Yeah, awesome.
We've got another one from Peter. He wants to know if you use any custom app scripts for Google Sheets.
Yeah, I have one or two, but they are really messy. Only I understand that. But yeah, it depends on. I usually want to do everything as simple as possible and as quick as possible. So when it comes to analyzing large chunks of data, if the less scripts that you put into running, or the less machine you're making work it, is the better. I don't know if I say it right, but yeah.
That's fine.
The only add-ons and scripts that I use are the APIs for analytics, the Search Console, and ScreenFrog, of course. ScreenFrog for life.
Of course.
Yeah. 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 Sorry, Sightbulb. Yeah, I'm still very much in Screaming Frog's corner. I'm going to say like this is the last question so that we can let Kristina go to bed, as it's probably what 5 there now? No.
6.
Oh my gosh. 6 a.m. in Toronto. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This is the very last question with the wonderful Chris with Chris. I don't want to get your last name wrong. Log files usually get overwritten every couple of days or daily. This is a really good question, actually. Perhaps you could be talking about Web Analyzer or AW stats, or do you have another means for exporting server logs?
Okay. The logs, the log file, the way a web server logs the server request, it depends on the server. It depends on the company that you're working with. AWS or Web Analyzer or any other hosting or server company does it differently. If you're working with sites this big, this large, they will have some developer or some guy or girl in infrastructure that will get you those logs. If you are in the worst case that log files are overwritten every couple of days, just start saving them. You won't need more than a month of data to come up with any useful information.
That's awesome. And I think that's such a great place to bookend it. Thank you so much, Gaston. That was awesome. And like one last little shout out. Very first talk.
So in regards to log files, like, if you're using something like Cloudflare, you can actually like write custom log files using so they have like an agent, I think, I can't remember the name. It's called Logflare, I think. So each request that your server gets, as long as it's passing through Cloudflare, it can write a custom log file for you. So like, if you don't have an option to kind of log your request, you can use something like that. It's not probably the most efficient way, but it's probably like a way to get log file access if you don't have one.
Yeah.
That I didn't know. That is really cool. What a great little last tidbit just to end it on. Yeah, thanks for that, Saijo. We shall chat sometime after this about that. That's really cool. Guys, thank you so much for this. This was absolutely phenomenal. We had some really great questions. Just to just sign off on you, Gaston. If someone wants to reach out to you and ask you specific questions, because there is such a wealth of knowledge that you have, and your ability to be able to really answer really complex questions quite succinctly, how do people reach out to you?
Just one place, Twitter. My handle is Gaston Riera. Yeah. That's as simple as that. If or I don't know, or Google me, Google Gaston Riera, everything. That's it. Plain and simple.
Easy, too easy. Well, that's awesome. I did link Gaston's Twitter handle in the links below. So go follow him and tweet at him if you've got any specific questions after this. And of course, the same with Kristina and Saijo and myself, because I think we all pretty much do live on Twitter. It's a place to be.
If you're an SEO, definitely.
Yeah. If you're an SEO, it's the place to go. Oh gosh, that's so lame. Thank you so much, guys. If you've been watching to the end, thank you so much. If you're seeing this after the fact, hello and goodbye, because we will be tuning up until next one. Absolutely. Subscribe, hit the like button and ding that notification bell so you can get notified every time we release a video or post any updates for the next meetup. So every SEO meetup and Women in Tech SEO Melbourne is every first Tuesday of every month. We do highly encourage you guys to, to tweet at any one of us. And, this is kind of like a live forum. You can dictate what we focus on next. So tweet at us with any of your ideas or what you'd like to see from SEO Meetup and how it can evolve, because this is a crazy time and there's so much potential that we can really, be able to give back and share and help people out at the moment. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, thanks so much, Gaston and Kristina. Like, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys come here and talk about, all your expertise. And I'm sure our listeners would have enjoyed these too. So again, great talk. Thank you so much.
Woo, 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 woo.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good night,
Well,
guys. Good morning.
Yeah.
Kristina.
Goodbye.
Bye.